Can you see the whole quote?
Yeah.
Okay, someone with good eyes want to read it for me? Jessica,
Do you want
would
me
you read
to?
it?
Yeah. We live in a most exciting and challenging period in human history. As technology sweeps through every facet of our lives, changes are occurring so rapidly that it can be difficult for us to keep our lives in balance. To maintain some semblance of stability in our lives, it is essential that we plan for our future. I believe it is time, and perhaps with some urgency, to review the counsel we have received in dealing with our personal and family preparedness. We want to be found with oil in our lamps sufficient to endure to the end. President Spencer W. Kimball admonished us in reviewing the Lord's counsel to us on the importance of preparedness. I am impressed with the plainness of the message. The Savior made it clear that we cannot place sufficient oil in our preparedness lamps by simply avoiding evil. We must also be anxiously engaged in a positive program of preparation. He also said the Lord will not translate one's good hopes and desires and intentions into works. Each of us must do that for himself. L. Tom Perry.
Okay. That was given almost 20 years ago. That instruction by Elder Perry, and I think we can just amp it up and realize if he is saying that he believes it is time, and perhaps with some urgency for us to increase our preparations. I think 20 years later we can, take that at face value and say, I think that we're at a point, and I think most of us can feel the need and the urgency to prepare. Alrighty. Well, I hope tonight, after spending this little bit of time together, that you will feel that you leave armed with a little bit more information that will help you go home and work in areas of on your own preparedness, so that you might follow this counsel of Elder Perry and President Kimball. If you're here, I imagine emergency preparedness is somewhat important to you. I think there's a small percentage of the church who is heeding the counsel to prepare, and I'm heartened by the number of people that are here tonight, and which means you're working on your preparedness. Hopefully we're all acquiring a 3-month supply. We're storing water. We have our 3-month supply. Hopefully we're headed towards the goal of getting a year's supply. But the fact of the matter is, we can have all the food we could possibly want, and if we don't have a way to prepare it, it's not going to do us a whole lot of good. So to me, in the hierarchy of ways I've prepared, food and water, obviously, 1 and 2. But fuel and a means to prepare that food is right there behind those things. In our ward, we challenged our ward members in a 5th Sunday in May that they would have 3 things done by the 5th Sunday, which would be the end of October. That they have a 3-month supply, that they have a 2-week supply of water, and that they have started to figure out or have a means of preparing that food. If, in fact, we've got to prepare for the worst for the worst scenario, and if it doesn't turn out to be that, well then lucky us, So we're assuming that tonight that we're going to be in a situation where we don't have electricity, and so let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, when it comes to cooking, without power, we have to start with fuel. And there's a few things that I encourage anybody. I've given this class before. I would encourage all of us to have several sources of fuel. charcoal, and I'm gonna cover the fuel real quick. You know, the benefits of charcoal is it's fairly inexpensive. It's great because with the number of briquettes you use while you're using it, you can control heat. I didn't bring wood, but we all know wood is, you know, in supply, and that's great. It can be bulky and cumbersome to try to store, but you can store it anywhere. Which with some of the fuels we're gonna talk about, you can't store those fuels next to food. You're gonna want them away from the food. Of course, there's propane, and I just brought this little can of propane that often goes with a camp stove. I'm gonna show you another means of cooking that also you can use propane. Does anybody know, I meant to look this up in our city, like the larger containers of propane. Does anybody know, like each city apparently has its own ordinance of how much you can store it, and like what I read is most of the time you're not supposed to store large amounts of it in your garage, attached to your home. You can have it, is anybody familiar with that? So I mean, I store it, but I haven't really paid attention to that so much, so we'll just leave it at that. Butane,
How to get it out of a propane tank?
what's that?
If you have a propane tank on your property or two.
You mean a big giant one?
Right.
You're not talking about the container that you'd hook up to your gas grill.
No.
You're talking about
Because your house is on it.
because your house is on it,
Right.
okay?
So, but does anybody know how you
Access
ask
that in an emergency.
Exactly.
Okay,
Or where we go to find that out.
yeah. The
Kimberly,
fire
you talking
department is
about
what I was told
to
that if you,
distribute it to other places, or are you talking about
Or
just
use
using
it,
it at home?
just using it, because it's connected into your home, but it's a huge tank, huge.
Yeah, but it's connected
It's
to your
already
home.
connected, you're using it all the time, right?
No, right.
so you're the
Yeah,
lucky
you-
one, Kimber.
You're good.
You're not dependent like we are.
Kimber, you can refill barbecue tanks from that. It's not real hard to do, you just have to get the right fittings.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a fitting thing, you know, it's
Okay.
only expenditure.
I don't know what the answer to
Using
her
portable tanks
question,
to distribute.
but I'm thinking in certain emergencies, like an earthquake or something, it wouldn't be safe to access that because if there was a broken pipe or something, that could cause issues.
Good point.
So, I mean, if you can even, I don't know.
I just realized I have a handout, and if you're here as a couple, will you just take one? Or do you wanna just pass that around, Jan?
Stephanie, I do know that if you have those big tanks, because we have like several of them,
Uh-huh,
if you wanna use that with your camping stove, you need a special attachment. You can get
yes,
those at
you
Walmart.
do. Okay, and you can get them at Walmart, okay, very good. Butane is a fuel that I love in particular, and you'll see why. This is a fuel, unlike other things that we'll talk about, can be used indoors. It's not super cheap, but it's not, you know, too horribly expensive either. The downside of butane is if you need to use it outside, if the can is cold, it doesn't work very well and it doesn't burn efficiently. So this is, in particular, is if you're in an emergency and you're able to stay inside your house, that is.
Is there a shelf life on that?
The shelf life is indefinite, and I've read different things, but I think the consensus is indefinite on this, indefinite on charcoal goes. They say indefinite, but it burns less efficiently the older it is. So then there's things like Instafire, which this stuff is awesome because it's not only, so this is, well, these are a fire starter, but I don't know, has anybody ever purchased the other Instafire, the actual fuel? But I mean, you can light it laying in a snow, you can light, if you poured this on a wet log, it would light and the log would end up burning. So there's advantages. Question?
No, I was just gonna say, I used to live up in the mountains, and I kept that all the time.
Did you? Okay.
Because when it snowed heavy, we didn't always get utilities up there, so that
Very
works really well.
That's great.
That, and also they come in little pellet kind of
Exactly.
ones too.
I have a bucket of the pellets,
And there, you just sprinkle it on and light
and
it
it
and
lights.
match.
That's awesome. Okay, well, let's get started, and then there's things like canned fuel. But let's get started on the different options as far as cooking. Up front here, I have some example of what I call short-term solutions. This is something you'd probably have in your 72-hour kit. This is gonna heat, you're gonna be able to boil your soup or a cup of water. This is an actual backpacking, this is an $8 item. It was funny because I went because I wanted to price the fuel. Well, I think the last time my husband backpacked was probably 15 years ago. This can of fuel was $2.99. It's right there. I looked it up on Amazon. It's over $10 for this can of fuel. So, there again, these are all temporary options. This little thing is cool because you just put a little, there's a little disc you put down in here and you could heat a cup of soup or whatever. But obviously, this is for a short-term situation. So in your handout, if you'll just kind of follow along with me, I've kind of laid out, so if we go from those little short-term situations, the other thing I wanted to show, which I think this is a cool product, it's called Stove at a Can. You can find it online ranging from $20 to $25. But in it, there again, to me, this is a 72-hour kit solution. But in it, you get 4 discs that each burn for an hour. And you get your matches. Literally, this is a self-contained little stove that will give you 4 hours of cooking. There again, it's more like heating up. You're not going to, be frying potatoes on this. But it's more like heating up soup, heating up a can of chili. But I have these in our 72-hour kits. I think that, those are awesome.
So, when you start that, you start one of the discs,
Yes,
and you say 4 hours, but suppose you don't want to use it for that long.
Right.
You blow it out?
yes. All you have to do is extinguish it by taking this off, putting the lid on, and it extinguishes, and you can relight it again. So if you only used it for 15, so each one of these discs burns for an hour. So,
Stephanie?
Yeah.
Also, when you're talking about a can, you can get a coffee can or one of those number 10 cans from the storehouse and put a whole roll of toilet paper in there. And then pour a whole thing of alcohol, like rubbing alcohol. I mean, this is stuff you have around the house.
Yes.
And then that'll burn like a fire too. And you could use it in the house. It doesn't make a huge flame and it's odorless. And
That's
that'll
great.
burn for quite a while.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Tonight I'm going to be demonstrating some things that there is a financial investment, but there is a do-it-yourself option for every single one of these different things I'm going to demonstrate. I put instructions for 3 options over on that back table. I hear the stake is going to also be posting it on the preparedness website. At any rate, so there's several do-it-yourself options. Now, mind you, there's an apple box option of making your own oven with an apple box. Now, that apple box is going to get you through an emergency. It's not going to take the place of a Dutch oven long term if you've got to be cooking for a year. But it is good to know we're all in different places. We have different priorities about where we want to put our money towards preparedness. And so there are some lower cost options. Okay, so needless to say, a lot of us probably already have a camping stove, which is great. To me, this is great, but storing tons and tons of these gets to be a little bit costly. But I've done it, and there again, it's because I want to have several options that I've stored various types of things. One of my very favorite things, and to me this is like the powerhouse duo. This is called a butane stove. You see a lot of times caterers will have these little portable stoves that are indoors. They range from, you can get it as low as $18 on Amazon. This little stove, in your handout too, I might not cover all, but under the butane stove, so all I'm doing is putting my butane can in there. It locks into place. And I'm gonna use it as a regular stove. So it's fantastic. It is for literally 12 cans of butane, and I'm just an Amazon Prime fanatic, and so I often will compare prices, but invariably, if I find it cheaper by the time I've paid shipping from somewhere else, I'm better off with Amazon. 12 of these butane cans is $24 on Amazon. And there again, you might find it cheaper somewhere else. But,
If I may, I think you can find those cheaper at Sam's Club. For a
Really?
whole lot, but I think the cans are like $1 there.
serious, that's
So
fantastic.
I check it, but I think that's the case.
Really? Okay, thank you.
Do you know how long one of those burns for?
Yes, so that's what I was just gonna tell you. All right, it's somewhere in the handout here.
2 hours on high, 4 hours on low.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Did everybody hear that? So 2 hours, this will burn 2 hours on a high flame, 4 hours on low. Okay, this is where, and to my mind, that's fantastic. But if I'm in emergency for a month, I'm not gonna be cooking all my food on this and, you know, making a pot of chili that has to cook for a half hour. It would just be too costly. That's where this becomes the powerhouse duo to me. This is a thermal cooker. There's lots of them on the market. Then after the butane, it says Wonder Bag. There again, that is just demonstrating that you could make your own thermal cooker. Not necessarily, and this thing really works. It's what called a Wonder Bag, Wonder Box. If you don't want to make yourself a Wonder Bag, this thermal cooker is like my favorite thing ever. It's like, okay, like I say, there's many of them on the market. I just happened to read that this Saratoga Jack was a good one, and so that's the one I purchased. So what's gonna happen is I'm in an emergency, I wanna make a pot of chili. I put all my ingredients in here. So I've got my little butane stove. I'm mixing up let's just say I'm making taco soup. My cans of beans, I'm frying up my meat, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing that. I get it, all my ingredients in. I bring it for a boil for 2 to 3 minutes. Then it gets placed inside this thermal cooker. This has a there's 2 cans in here. This is of this Saratoga. This is the 7 liter, I think they call it, and there's a 5.5. There's options when you went to go to buy it of 2 qualities or levels of the pot. It seemed like such a minuscule difference, and everything I read is that this heavier metal conducts the heat so much better that it's worth spending a little bit of extra money. So I've made my taco soup. It's put in here. And I've got samples tonight, and I did it exactly as described. Then I decided, I want to add some rice to my taco soup. So, and literally I am doing everything in this pot. This pot sits on sits right here, and I've made my soup here. 2 to 3 minutes. I put 4 cups, for example, 4 cups of water that I bring to a boil and 2.5 cups of rice. Mix it up, boil it for a couple of minutes. That goes on the top here. The lid goes on top, and it goes inside. So you've got this self-contained thing. Now, obviously, this is fantastic for emergency. This is fantastic to take to the beach or a tailgate party, or, some of these tools we can, multi-purpose with. 2 hours later, my food is done, and literally what you'll taste tonight is I let it cook for 2 hours. The recommended, you can leave it in for up to 8 hours. It is safe up to 8 hours. Beyond that, you know, it's a little, it's not recommended. This thing ends up saving me so much fuel because it's, you know, I'm not using any fuel. It's a thermos, basically, is what it is. And so tonight you'll taste the chili and rice dish. So I made the chili and then I made the rice separately and then mixed it together because obviously they cook differently, and so that worked out. Tonight you'll taste a kind of an oatmeal, and so I made a muesli mix, put it in last night before I went to bed. Same thing, boiled it for just a couple of minutes. Then I thought, ooh, it would taste so much better if it had something sweet over it. So I took some peaches that I cut up, added water and sugar, and made a syrup, put it in the top of in my top little thing, and literally when we woke up this morning, it was hot cereal with a fruit topping. So the sky is the limit on using this thing. Everything. I found this book, and it's not inexpensive. I want to say it's in the $25 range. It is absolutely, this lady's LDS, it's absolutely phenomenal because she shows you how you can use it in all different situations. You can use it with bucket meal. She's got but the recipes that I've used tonight came from this book.
What's it called?
It is called Let's Make Sense of Thermal Cooking by Cindy Miller.
Mom, I was also gonna say, Cindy Miller, she has a lot of YouTube videos where she demonstrates making all different dishes in the thermal cooker.
Oh,
and she
good.
does thermal cooking classes, and people record them and put them online, and those are helpful
Oh, good.
to
Thank
see her
you.
do it.
What's her name again?
Cindy Miller.
How much does the thermal cooker run?
Okay, so this is the larger one with the upscaled metal. It's $130. So, and I think on there, I tried to put, some of the pricing if I knew it on your handout, but I'm almost sure that's what it says. The one that feeds, the 5.5 liter one is $100, and that's to feed 3 to 5 people. So, at any rate, all right.
Now, just a question. Can I
Sure.
ask that? Obviously, whatever temperature your product is when you go in there, it's gonna go down. It's gonna lose some, there's a certain
Yes.
percentage.
Over
Nothing's
time.
gonna go higher.
That's right.
Okay, so it's gonna lose, so there must be certain things that you really would not, I don't know if a whole chicken would work, but you wanna make sure that you have to use product that doesn't need to be cooked as much as it needs to be sustained in heat, I think. Would you say? I mean, what is your take on that?
Yeah, you know what? There are recipes to cook. Well, I personally haven't done it, but there are, in this book, she cooks there's a recipe to do a chicken. But, like I say, I personally haven't done it, and I imagine it's more than boiling it for 2 minutes before you're gonna put it in here, obviously. Yeah, so good point.
Just have to remember that.
Yeah. And there again, I'm a huge fan of YouTube videos like for demonstration. I mean, just like the Wonder Bag. I mean, there's so many tons of videos of people demonstrating how you can make that thing very simply, and very cost effectively. Pinterest, you go put in Saratoga Jack or thermal cooker recipes, the sky's the limit. So, at any rate, we're so fortunate in this day and age that we have the resources we do. We don't have to, if my joke is, you have a question, we'll just Google it, So, at any rate, that is fantastic. So, okay, so let's move on to Dutch oven. Excuse me, question.
Something to remember is, we won't have computer access or phone access at the time,
No.
so be sure you know how to use the equipment before you.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because that's a point I really wanted to make, is it's great to buy all these, to acquire all these tools, but there's a learning curve to every last one of them. And so I would encourage you, as you, accumulate this, practice with it. Everything on this table I own. This isn't mine, but I own one of these, and this is the last tool I've yet to really practice enough with to have mastered it. So someone else is going to teach us about that. But for sure, just in preparing for this class, I learned so much, and I've been dabbling at this for a while, so absolutely, for sure. So that really fits in very well, because a while ago I bought a long time ago I bought a Dutch oven, but I decided, it was time for me to figure it out and utilize this tool I had and had never practiced with. So then I thought, how am I going to, in the convenience of my own home, end up practicing with a Dutch oven? I have a house and my kitchen's upstairs. I have a deck that's outside. So at any rate, I can't even just really walk out my back door and be at a fire pit or whatever. So I came across this little thing, and literally I think it's $50, and it's put out by Camp Chef, who is another, a Lodge is a big popular Dutch oven manufacturer. Well, Camp Chef is one too. I bought this little thing, and this is a kind of a sideline. This thing is like the best thing, because this is where I practice my Dutch oven cooking. And literally, I think it was $50. And so, my coals that go underneath, the Dutch ovens sit here, my Dutch oven goes up. I've got one of my Dutch ovens here, but the other one I practice with is even bigger. And it's awesome. Or I can have two things going at the same time. So that's just a little sideline, but it kind of drives home the point of, we got to practice somewhat.
What's inside the little?
Is it just like a little table?
It's just a little table, that's all it is. The legs unscrew, it's just a little table, but it can handle the heat that is generated from the Dutch oven.
In relationship to that, we were looking for oil pan drains, pans that you put under the car to drain your oil in. And I couldn't believe it, because all the advertisers that showed their oil pan drains associated them with also selling a Dutch oven.
Huh.
Use the oil pan drain for your coals, and then put your Dutch. So when you bought that, they say, well, many of our customers also bought a Dutch oven.
That's great. Yeah, so an oil pan. That's great. All right.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
That's what we use. And we
Is
put
it?
we put about 3 bricks down, and then put the pan on top, and then
Okay.
cook on that.
Great. Is it, how much would an oil pan cost?
Oh, we've had it for a long time. So.
No, I'm like $20?
What it is
Yeah,
now.
or less.
Or less? Great, I
Yeah.
love it. Okay,
Just make sure you get the metal one.
right. Do they make plastic ones?
Yes, they do.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make it short on the Dutch oven. The thing I love about Dutch oven is it's a one-pot meal, which to me in an emergency, I'm gonna be making pretty much one-pot meals. Soups, stews, chilies, that type of a thing. But Dutch oven, you can make literally anything in it. Tonight we're gonna have banana bread that was made out of the Dutch oven. It's just very versatile. I love the fact that with the charcoal that you're using with it, you literally can control the heat. I was shocked to realize how really specific on different Dutch oven recipes, how very specific they are about your coal placements. That was news to me. So I have this book. It's not particularly anything great, but with every recipe, it specifically tells you how you're placing the coals. It is that much of a science to have success with this. So a lot of them will say have 12 coals on the bottom and 14 on the top. But the thing I like about the Dutch oven is, oh man, it's one of those things where I feel like the fuel isn't overly expensive. It's something I can get set up and walk away for 50 minutes or whatever it is. What has made practicing the Dutch oven the best thing is, and probably a lot of you, can you tell mine is stored outside? This is a charcoal chimney. It is $12 to $18 item on Amazon. There's all kinds of them. And if I was to do it again, I'd get the Teflon one. This thing, I feel, so my recipe calls for, say, 26 briquettes. I put them in here. I, light my match. It takes off. Literally, it's never been more than 12. It's been between 10 and 15 minutes before my coals are ready to go.
Do you have to do, I know it sounds, the starter fluid, lighter?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
I spent a long
This
time
thing
since
is
I did.
fantastic. It's like, where has this been all my life?
I take like newspaper and put it underneath and light that and.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just put it like, wad up a piece of newspaper, okay. All right. This has helped so much, preparing the briquettes, because that was an intimidating part to me. So that is fantastic. We'll go back to the Dutch oven in a minute. Recently I've been doing some reading and came across, and I don't know how new of a product this is. I don't know if it's been around, but this is called the Volcano 3-in-1 Grill. And where that was my favorite little combination of cooking, this has become now my next favorite thing, or my newest favorite. The thing that's awesome about this thing is you can burn 3 types of fuel: wood, charcoal, or you can hook a propane tank up to it. So it shows up, it's like this, and then it sets up. This is a messy, at any rate. So this is the Volcano. So let's say I decided I was going to grill, shish kebabs. So this is the little insert that goes into it, and I'm not gonna go to the trouble of setting it all up, but this will set inside, and then I have my, what would you call this? Plug and your regulator, and this is gonna go to my tank, my propane tank. And so that gets set up, and I won't go into all that, but the bottom line is there, and then you're regulating your heat from here.
Can this be used indoors or is it strictly outdoors?
Strictly outdoors. So let's say I'm using that, I'm using propane for this time. This little plate goes on top. And then let's say I wanted to fry an egg, on my thing. I could grill shish kebab on here. I could put a skillet on top here and fry an egg. This thing's awesome. I love this thing. They say, and the men here could maybe explain the science, but supposedly the Volcano, whatever, the way the structure of it makes it so you're using less fuel. It's much more fuel efficient. Okay, so that's one way to use it. Let's say I want to then use my Dutch oven. I want to make whatever. This plate goes in the bottom. I'll put my coals as I would if I was cooking on my little thing over there. My Dutch oven. goes inside here. One tip, I've been wanting to get a 12-quart Dutch oven because I've got a big one than that and small, and I wanted to get one that fit here. Don't buy the Volcano one. I bought theirs that supposedly goes with this. This is what I don't like about it. The coals don't stay on the top of the lid. Look at it's domed, and it doesn't do very well. So just get your own 12-quart Lodge one or whatever. Okay, so then my coals are going here. They have an accessory that then is separate from that. And I think in your notes I put down the pricing on this and that there's an accessory package and so forth. So the banana bread I made, this is the way I did it. I used the Volcano stove and the Dutch oven. I had never used this thing that ends up making it hotter, I guess, and holds the heat in and all that. Oh my gosh, I took it out 15 minutes before it said it was gonna be done, and the bottom was burned, so you're gonna get the remnants of it. So I think this thing really works. It's nice when you buy something and it works. oh, sorry. So, at any rate, okay, let me think what else. Any questions?
So when you're using that with the coals, obviously you're taking the whole butane thing off first.
Absolutely, this has to come out, yeah. So it comes with a carrying package that a carrying bag that all this stuff fits in, and then, it just sits down.
Wow.
There's a little venting thing here to control, the heat. So I just think that's really cool.
If you were using wood or kindling, does that go inside that right there, or where do you put it?
It just lays on top of this, just as if as your coals are laying on top of that.
Have you ever used that stuff in it?
I haven't owned this very long, just a couple of weeks, so I've just been practicing it with it recently.
Are there any extra handouts?
Let's see, they went around, I don't know if there is or not. I have one, if anybody didn't get a hand, oh yeah, that's great, I can give you
A lot of people back there did. Is the library, can we go to the library?
you know what, it's a two-sided thing. If someone will start a piece of paper and do your email, I'll shoot you it tonight when I get home, okay? So, Marcia?
Okay, so I'm thinking about all these things and I'm thinking, okay, so if there was some kind of emergency and it was raining outside or bad weather, it seems like the only thing then that I could really use in my house is the butane, right?
That's what, I love this because it's so versatile.
Okay, so the butane is inside and everything else is outside.
It's outside, yes.
Can I give some real life observations on
Yes,
propane?
please do.
I use propane four hot meals a week, minimal inside my RV, because I live a long ways away. I have a carbon monoxide, we've cooked with propane indoors for decades, forever.
Really?
It's not a big thing, don't put yourself in a sealed thermal unit because you're gonna deplete your oxygen.
Okay.
But you can cook with propane, I have a regular stove, 4 burners. I have an oven.
Really?
And
Okay.
it's not an issue. I'll give you real life. I cook a minimum of 1 hot meal a day, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes it's a microwave. 30-pound bottle of propane, 6 months, 4 days a week. 1 meal a day.
Serious? Wow.
I don't waste it.
Right,
It's expensive.
right,
But
right.
it's your cheapest long-term fuel. You can put 2 30-pound bottles. I used to keep in my garage, because, big garage.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Okay.
not, propane is fine indoors.
Okay.
It's,
All right.
I've got a heater.
said it.
A little heater buddy that's got its carbon monoxide monitor with it. I use it inside the car in snow areas. Never had a problem,
Okay, that's
except it
great.
got too hot.
Something else about fuel, for less than $10, you can get what's called a log roller.
Okay.
And if you get a newspaper or paper sacks or any of that kind of stuff that's paper, you can put them together and it rolls it really tight, and you use like, the wire, the tiny wire. You can either buy a roll of it, or it's like the wire that fits inside the twisty,
Yeah,
the wire
right,
thing.
that
You put it
thing.
around your logs
Uh-huh.
while they're really tight in the machine, then you take them off and you can keep those and stack them and use them, just keep them in like a large garbage bag
Yeah,
to
that's
keep them dry,
awesome.
and
That's great.
it's just as good
Yeah,
as wood.
recycling there.
Even easier to start.
Yeah.
Back to the volcano grill stove thing, is the advantage to that is it conserves your fuel, or like
Yes.
why would you want to put the Dutch oven in there versus just outside?
Definitely,
Like,
so
I don't
it
know.
works, okay, so for instance, the banana bread was supposed to take 50 minutes yesterday. I checked it 15 minutes early and it was burned.
Okay.
So, and that's kind of what I was testing, because that's what this promises, is that it's gonna cook. It did, it really did, so, I don't know, I mean, you could look at that and go, well, wait, you were gonna use 26 briquettes anyways,
was wondering.
and so,
It also makes
What's-
it, cooks it more like a cake. I like to make peach cobbler, and I made it in the volcano, and I double stacked it. So my bottom one turned out more cake-like than the other one, but you can rotate them, it's really nice.
oh, that's awesome.
But I didn't put the thingy over it.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right, well, you know, I don't know if there's anybody here who kind of follows Wendy DeWitt, and Sister Shelley last month kind of highlighted Wendy DeWitt's system of really food storage, which I think it's just hands down the best system you could, and you could go look her up on YouTube, and she has like 14 videos that are consecutively, it's fantastic. So,
How do you spell her last name?
capital D-E, capital W-I-T-T. She has, she said with her food storage, every single meal she has that she's stored for her year's supply will be cooked in the sun oven. She doesn't mess with a lot of other things. That makes me a little bit nervous because, well, we'll let Wendy talk about that.
Where does she
But-
live?
Lives in Arizona. She lives in Arizona.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking Arizona.
Do you guys know her?
No.
Just the
Oh,
heat,
okay.
the heat.
She's have to, I
sun.
guess.
Oh, the sun, yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
I
She
mean,
makes that
I
point
worked
in her
out the
video.
desert. I haven't
Yeah,
seen a cloud
yeah,
in
yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, no, she doesn't live in Utah or Idaho, or, that's true, she
Yeah.
makes that point too.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's raining all the time.
So, at any rate, but it made me get interested in the whole sun oven thing, and I acquired one, but like I said, I haven't mastered it, so I figured I'd talk to someone, I'd have someone help me who knows a little bit more than I do about it. So I'm gonna turn over a few minutes to you.
Unfortunately, I'm not an expert at this. I'm going off of my sister Diana Morgan, who was in our state. who
Diana's
has
your
made-
sister?
She is.
You know that?
Who has made a roast, she's made muffins, boiled eggs, but they're not boiled, thing of eggs in here and cook them, and it'll be like hard-boiled eggs. Basically, anything you can cook in an oven, you can cook in here. No frying, you couldn't fry up scrambled eggs, but you can make a quiche or a casserole, an egg casserole. But she uses this, and the guy that was talking about that, anytime there's a shadow, you can use this. Because there's still rays that come through, so as long as there's a shadow, you can. These are expensive. They run, the newer ones are even a little bit bigger than this, but this runs about, with the accessories, about $400. So that is, yes.
I was just gonna say, you can make your own for less than 25, maybe
You
even
can
less
make
than
your
15.
own. My husband's a Mr. Do It. I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna.
All you need is a box, a cardboard box, tin foil, and some scissors. or
Yes, you
something to
can
cut
do
the tin
that.
foil.
I prefer to do it this way. We've actually, I think, bought these, on a group deal through Sun Oven, and I think got them for like more like $250, so, or $300 at the most. And it comes with, the accessories, different, pots or whatever. but, last year at the, what did we have, the fair, she made cookies out of it. And sat there and made cookies all day long, and, you know, it smells so good. Now, the guy says, and I was gonna do that today, he says, just put a chicken in there, a whole chicken in the morning, face it towards the south, and then just walk away and let it sit there and roast all day, and you come home and you've got a nice cooked chicken roast. But I ran out of time. There are some notes on this. Basically, it pays for itself after a while. If you want to, you know, summertime, it gets really hot in the house. This is great to put outside, and I really need to do that because then you don't heat up your house. Let's see. There is no air movement that comes in here. You can't see it. I'm so sorry. Can you hold it up a little bit? But in here, there's a glass that covers it, and there's a swinging kind of pedal, whatever. So when you need to rotate it, or the newer one comes with the T-bar that where it actually will lift it up like this so it can get more sun. This one does not do that, but the newer one will lift it up. But in here, this glass jar opens, then the swinging pedal things will swing so that your dish moves with it. Does that make sense? So if it's staying there, it'll just keep moving and keep it flat as it's being moved. So, but this one has a little thermometer thing in here, or I actually bought, when it was on sale from them, an extra one. Different accessories, these are like bread pans, different things. But you can dehydrate fruits in here, vegetables and meats. You can heat water for a sponge bath, sanitize dishes, dry firewood, lots of different things that you can do in the sun oven. It's basically, think of it as a crock pot, is what it talks about. So it does take a little bit longer, but again, I was impressed as we're out there camping, and my sister's cooking in this and cooked a roast, and it was just awesome. I also have one of these, it's a little bit bigger, and by the way, these are so great because you don't have to lean over when you're cooking Dutch oven. Everything is right here, and those Dutch ovens are heavy. So I'm leaning over, you know, with the back and everything. So, let's see. The other thing that I liked about this, you cannot burn your food in this. You cannot burn it, and it doesn't lose its moisture. So things turn out very moist, and it will not burn. A lot of times it talks about start early in the day. My sister Diana recommended, you know, a lot of times in emergency preparedness, have your big meal in the middle of the day instead towards night so that you have more use of the sun. Let's see. Food amount of time is in a normal oven, so you have to make sure that you are doing that. If you live in hotter areas such as Arizona, like Wendy does, of course you're going to have that hot sun, and we have that a lot here too. I mean, you could probably use this almost every day of the year almost. So cloudy days are good times to cook foods that just need a gentle simmer. The intermittent sun will provide enough heat to simmer soups and stews. What did it have to say? The other thing my sister said is that when it's cooking, you want to have space around your food. That's why she would like to have the bigger one, but again, it's just a big chunk of change out the door to begin with. We are hoping when they go back on sale to get a steak order going, and then we'll send out all that information, and hopefully, I think you have to get like 10 to get the special price. So when that comes back, we'll have that. And that's the other thing, corn on the cob. She made corn on the cob. She soaked it in the silk and in the husk for about 5 minutes and put it in here, and it just peeled off. So she did corn on the cob. She says that was really yummy. The other thing she says, and she said I have to do this, and she says that's my homework, is I have to practice with this. She says that's the best way to learn how to cook with a sun oven is just to start cooking with it. Because like she said, you don't want to be in an emergency and all of a sudden it still has the plastic stuff on. It looks so pretty. You can check it out at sunovens.com. I think the new company, they call it American Sun Ovens.
All American.
Yeah, All American, and they have great videos that demonstrate how to do it. The other thing I was gonna mention is the quick fire stove. I don't know if any of you've seen it, but it's probably half the size of this one right here. And it has little tinier pucks than this that you put in. And last year when we had the fair, I cooked my chili on top of that, and again, it lasts for about an hour. And I put that in my 72-hour backpack for my kids because it's a great heating source. So,
It's called Quick Fire?
Quick Fire Stove.
Okay.
There's different names for it, but you can look up Quick Fire Stove. But that's, I think it runs like $12 or $14 for that, and then the pucks are separate. I think it comes with 2 pucks, but it's an easy thing to put in the backpack. My daughter went camping and she used it one time. Diana went to the sand dunes and she cooked her soup on that. She's so awesome when it comes to so, me, I use my Dutch oven a lot. I have found with Dutch oven, I cheat, and at the outdoor Bass Pro Shops, they sell a tinfoil insert, so it's easy cleanup.
So it
Walmart,
just lines it?
it just,
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
so it's great. Also, Walmart sells like a parchment paper kind of liner for the Dutch ovens that you can put in there, and it just helps with the cleanup, so, cause they can be kind of messy, but I love my Dutch ovens. Yes?
The other thing about the sun oven that I really like is that the temperature does not matter. It can be a freezing cold day, but if the sun is shining, you get the same results on your food. It's simply the sun, not the temperature.
Yep. And it says here, there is no danger zone for foods. So no matter how you do your cooking, there is no danger zone. Some foods left at temperatures between 50 and 125 degrees for 3 or 4 hours can grow harmful bacteria and can carry a risk of food poisoning. Wait, that contradicts what I just said. So, remember, no matter how you do your cooking, there is a danger zone. Sorry, I even have my glasses on. Some foods left at a temperature, so then that when it goes on and talk. So you gotta be careful with that. Watch your food and don't let it fall into these temperatures for extended periods of time. So, you know, and if you cut your food in, there's tips like cutting your food into smaller pieces. If you got a big roast, you know, slice it at least or whatever. Baked potatoes, a good thing to do. Somebody showed me a trick. Instead of forking it like I used to, you just cut the potato almost in half. And so when it's done cooking, you just kind of squeeze in. It's already cut for you and you don't have to worry about that, but it helps it cook evenly and better. So that's all I have on the sun oven. So, yes?
Have you had a problem with burning food?
It says it will not burn the food. It does not burn the food.
I've burned stuff in a crock pot, so.
That you can do.
That can happen.
Yeah.
I think that's because the heat source is directly beneath, right, on the bottom.
Yeah.
But in the sun oven, you don't have that. So.
I want your crock pot.
You know,
I always
for
put
the
the
years-
insulation around mine to cook it, so I retain heat and get it
For
cook a
the
little
Dutch
faster.
oven, the briquettes, each briquette is worth about 25 degrees. So if you want something that's about 325, just remember each briquette is about 25 degrees. And you want less on the bottom than you want on top because obviously heat rate rises. And that's how sometimes you will get burnt. So just be careful with how many briquettes you put on the bottom and more on the top.
Thank you, Wendy, I appreciate that. All right, any last questions?
Did you have any of the Wonder Bag, or anything to say about the Wonder Bag?
Yeah, so in your handout I do, I say a little bit about it, I show a picture of it. And then just like I say, I just went on YouTube and put in Wonder Bag, or you go to Pinterest, put in Wonder Bag. There's numerous patterns for them that can be had, you know, from the internet. Well, I hope something said tonight was helpful to you and that you'll take this information and just hopefully become a little bit more prepared. Back in September of 2014, President Monson's President's message in our Ensign was regarding preparedness, and I wanted to just close by reading a few excerpts of his words. Are we prepared for the emergencies in our life? Are our skills perfected? Do we live providently? Do we have our reserve supply on hand? Are we obedient to the commandments of God? Are we responsive to the teachings of prophets? Are we square with the Lord? We live in turbulent times. Often the future is unknown. Therefore, it behooves us to prepare for uncertainties. When the time for decision arrives, the time for preparation is past. I think all of us who are involved in becoming prepared have a testimony of that principle and that truth. And I'm most grateful for Living Prophets, for the instruction we've received for literally over 100 years to become prepared. When I find myself involved in the activity of becoming physically prepared and, of course, spiritually prepared, I have peace. I have peace in my life. I have peace about the uncertainties that President Monson talks about. I'm so grateful that we have counsel from Living Prophets that counsel us to be involved in this work, and I hope that we'll all be participants in it for our own physical and spiritual well-being. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.